The Borderlands series is one of my favourite game series of all time. I've played every single version of the games from PS3, 4 and 5, PC, Switch and even PSVR. And Borderlands is no stranger to ambitious handheld ports like Borderlands 2 on the Vita. Yeah, there has to be compromises, the games mightn't look the best, missing the flashier particle effects of the powerful console versions, but I love playing these games in handheld mode, and the Switch port of Borderlands 3 is one of the most interesting third-party ports I have ever seen on Nintendo's handheld. So in this review, there are 3 questions I'm aiming to answer. 1. How does the game actually run on the Switch? 2. Should you rebuy the game if you've already played it? And 3. Is it worth buying if you've never played Borderlands 3 and only own a Switch? Borderlands 3 on the Switch is impressively only 8.5 gigs, and if you download all the DLC including the 5 gig other language VO pack, it comes to a whopping 23.6 gigs, which is less than half of what the base game on PS5 takes up. To do this, the devs had to make some fairly big changes to the game. Firstly, the graphics. At times, this game can look ugly, with low-res textures, especially on your character's hands, some very noticeable pop-in, and the all-too familiar level of detail loading issues where certain objects can take a couple of seconds to render fully. During combat, there is a noticeable lack of particle effects, which does take away from the carnage that the series is known for, and it's most noticeable on the elemental barrels where sometimes I didn't even realise they were blowing up. All this aside though, the game achieves some quite impressive frame rates. Borderlands 3 seems to run at an uncapped frame rate, and while I don't analyse the actual frames, the game regularly runs above 30 FPS, which is something I thought I'd never say. The drawback here though is that frame drops are more noticeable than if the game was locked to 30 FPS, and I personally would have preferred if the game was locked to 30 FPS. Combat can cause the game to chug, and when there are loads of NPCs on the screen, the frame rate tanks. Now with all that being said, the game still feels pretty good to play. I'm not going to sit here and say it's perfect, but I have enjoyed going back to the game, especially in handheld mode where I think this game shines. A big plus is that the Switch version has gyro aiming and a pretty forgiving aim assist, so even when the game is chugging during combat, it still feels pretty okay to play. One of the biggest drawbacks is that the game only has 2-player co-op instead of 4-player. Now I'd imagine that was a design choice because, well, if you had 4 characters on the screen, with 4 characters worth of enemies on the screen, plus particle effects, plus everything blowing up, the Switch probably couldn't handle it. When you blow the game up on a big screen, it can look, well, quite muddy. But when playing in handheld mode, everything is less noticeable. And if you have an OLED, it makes a cel-shaded art style pop. I did a comparison between the PS5 and Switch versions, and it seems they changed the colours slightly in the Switch version, making everything a bit more vibrant, which goes a long way in making the game look better than it probably should on the Switch. As for the game itself, well, I love it. Borderlands is one of my favourite franchises ever, and I think this one has the best gameplay of the trilogy by an absolute mile. The guns are crazier, classes have way more build depth with multiple action skills, and the sheer amount of content is staggering, especially when you take into account all the great DLC packs. The strong cast of characters from the previous games are all here and they carry the story. Not only am I attached to them because I've been playing these games for nearly 15 years, but they're the best written and most interesting characters in the game, because the game failed massively in adding any memorable characters to the series outside of maybe 1 or 2, and I think that's my main gripe with this game as a whole. I'm one of them weirdos who actually likes the story of Borderlands, and besides Wainwright Jacob and Typhon de Leon, the new characters don't stand out in my mind whatsoever, and even at that, the good ones aren't given the screen time that I would have liked. The writing is just as annoying as the previous games. Characters will be chirping in your ear the whole time. Now, I like the Borderlands style of writing, but it's not for everyone, and if you've previously disliked it, then this is no different here.
Great. I'm sure there's some people on the moon who didn't hear that.
Relax. On Pandora, it's actually super weird if something's not exploding. Now take your gun, recruit. You're gonna see.
The DLC as a whole are the best in the series. I don't think any individual pack reaches the heights of Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep from Borderlands 2, but the average quality of them all is way higher than that of Borderlands 1 or 2. I didn't test them out on the Switch, but they focus on the very strong characters from Borderlands 1 and 2, and the weakest of them all is the Bounty of Blood, because as of writing this and rewatching my review of Borderlands 3, it fails to introduce any characters that I cared about. Now to answer the questions. Should you buy this game if you've never played Borderlands 3 before? Yes. The quality of the base game and the DLCs are top notch, and this is one of the best action RPGs on the Switch. You just have to be prepared for the game not always running smoothly and looking, well, kind of ugly. If you've played the Vita port of Borderlands 2, then you'll have no problem enjoying this. And is this worth revisiting on the Switch if you've already played it? Right now, I don't think so. I had a great time revisiting this on the Switch, but even with the portability factor, I would much rather play it on my PS5, where I don't have to worry about how the game looks or runs. If portability is a massive factor for you, then this is a good way to play it. But of course, you have to take into account how important performance is for you, because you can have a way better experience on the go on the Steam Deck if you own one. Regardless, Borderlands 3 joins the impressive third-party ports on the Nintendo Switch. It's by no means perfect, but the fact that this game can at different points get over 45 FPS on the Switch is staggering. And then we have the full Borderlands trilogy on the Nintendo Switch, which I'll always be happy about. And you never know, if the Switch 2 or the Switch Pro or the Super Switch, whatever it's going to be called, comes out next year, it might run at a smooth 60 FPS then. There are compromises made, but I still liked it a lot. It's a good port of an amazing game. Thanks for watching. Let us know if you picked up Borderlands 3 in the comments down below, or if you're going to pick it up after watching this review. I really appreciate your time. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you all on the next video.